Aren't you glad I'm walking you through what I'm going through? So, I don't know. It says it's streaming. So, yeah. So let's see if it actually is streaming. I don't know. I'm not sure. Anyway, we are on Facebook, so that's good. And chat, and we'll see if the YouTube is working or not. YouTube is problematic, you know, so I never quite know what it's doing, what it's going to do. That's the thing. I never know quite what it's going to do. It's very hard to plan. So thanks, Nora. You liked Jinkies. Cool. Yeah, isn't this song is great. Hi, Mark. Okay, so we're going to be happening very soon. And yep, he's going to be on any minute now. Okay, and I'm just doing a few little things. I should probably just play him in the background again, so I will. Here's him in the background while we're waiting for him to show up. And let's look at it too while we're waiting. Watch on YouTube so I can get probably
This is a check.
Probably
My
has
company collected for
some information on who's in the band and stuff. So I'm gonna do that. I've noticed in these videos, there's a lot of dynamics happening, which is really great. Beautiful. All right. I think we're here now. Hi, Pete. Hello.
Hey, can you see me?
Yes, I can, and I can hear you too.
Awesome. How are you?
How is your walk?
Beautiful. It's our family ritual with the kids.
Oh,
Yeah. And the weather's great. It's in the 80s today.
80s. That's kind of the perfect weather.
How is it where you're at?
Beautiful. I sat outside this morning with my coffee, and it was warm enough that I was getting the sun, but there was like a very nice temperature breeze.
And you're in LA, right?
Yeah. Where are you in Texas?
I'm about 30 minutes north of Austin.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a town called Georgetown.
Do you play in Austin a lot?
No, not at all. Not anymore.
Oh,
Uh, long story short, a lot of politics.
yeah.
I don't do well with politics, so I just thought it was better for me to just stop dealing with it. And it's a great place to live where I live. It's very relaxing. You know,
Yeah.
quiet. Your money lasts longer than living in New York or New Jersey.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I have other friends who live outside of Austin and they really like it. It's low key, cost effective, community based. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's. I used to play a lot, but at first it bothered me, but now I've accepted it, and I actually just enjoy when I'm home, family time, walk the dogs, work out. I'm a stay-home dad, so I'm busy with my daughter. And then, I go to New York. I just got the artist in residence job at the University Conservatory Puerto Rico. So
Oh,
there twice. I go back in April. So busy with that. And in April, I go back to New York to play in two
yeah.
clubs.
When you have a residency like that, what do you go for a month or a week or a day or
Yep.
what?
I was there this last time a week and a half.
Yeah. And do you do that a few times a year?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So right now, I'm going to have a Zoom call with the rector. It's kind of like provost, I guess,
Yeah.
next week to see if I could come more because the trumpet studio is needs help with jazz.
Yeah. I would imagine you would be very welcome there.
Well, I grew up in Puerto Rico, half New York, half Puerto Rico. So a lot of the professors that teach there I know, old friends, and since I speak Spanish, I'm one of the few people that can play jazz and classical music and salsa music, but that also speaks Spanish.
Oh,
I,
interesting.
many of us
Yeah,
that know especially those three genres that have played it with the best and that speak fluent Spanish.
right, right.
You normally don't think about that, you notice?
Yeah,
You normally don't. I mean, there's very few. You have, Ray Vega?
only the name.
Yeah, he doesn't, his Spanish is not as fluent as mine because he's from native Bronx person. He speaks it, but he's also busy, has a full-time job at the University of Vermont. So he wouldn't even have the time to do what I do.
Yeah,
The other person is Mike Rodriguez, but he's so busy with San Francisco Jazz Collective and I think he teaches at NYU and some other universities, so he wouldn't even have the time. So,
yeah. Well,
um, yeah,
also,
so
I
I'm in a
mean,
good.
being versed in classical and salsa and jazz. I mean, that's right there. That's kind of unique, right?
It cut off kind of what?
Oh, kind of unique, right?
Yeah, yeah. I don't even. And the thing is, Ray Vega and Michael don't never really played classical music, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
so
so I was, I've been playing your stuff for an hour. Really good. It's
okay.
funny. I was telling everybody in the beginning how I met you, and it was like we were destined to meet. Apparently because we were coming down. It was the end of the Jazz Congress. We both got in the elevator. Our energy was like, "Bing! Hi, hey, how you doing?" And I just knew. I mean, you didn't even have to tell me a lot. I just knew you were a good musician and real personable. And and then I found out, all about your history, which is fabulous. And yeah, it's just great. It's great to have you on, and then to listen to you more. Because I don't really do a lot of history research on the people I have on because I want it to be spontaneous, like I'm just meeting you almost, and so I usually kind of in the moment find out more, listen more, and then of course afterwards I listen even more. But the playing, gosh, the videos were so good, and
Thank you.
one thing I have to bring up, which is I bet it's talked about in your reviews, is that you don't necessarily come on like slamming, like kind of maybe the typical salsa solo, for instance. You're coming on like this kind of real musical, not that, you know, slamming salsa solos aren't musical, but it's like you've stepped into the music and you're sensitive to what's going on and you're making a comment, you're getting in and creating like not necessarily loud. So that's a really significant thing for me to hear, and it's beautiful.
Well, I'm glad that you started with this, because we just met in New York in January, so we didn't get to talk a lot, so I don't know
Yeah.
how strong your ears are.
Yeah.
Um, and you nailed it, right? Although I grew up listening to salsa in my house because of my father
Yeah.
being Pete Conde and my godfather being Johnny Pacheco.
Yeah.
Um, the one issue that I had, and this is a to me, it's a touchy subject because salsa Latino trumpet players can get offended, and I do not want to offend them because I love the way they play.
Yeah.
But the one thing I noticed that it didn't work for me playing salsa is the volume is much louder than how I hear music in my head.
Yeah.
And I think it has to do, although I listened to salsa first before classical music, but I studied with one of the best classical trumpet teachers in Puerto Rico from seventh grade to senior year. She played second trumpet in the symphony.
Huh.
She could have played in any symphony in the United States.
Yeah.
So when you have that sound in your head for 6 years, pure beauty,
Yeah.
never overblowing, and then sub when they needed four, five, six trumpets since I was 15 or 14. So I got to play with the person that first played first trumpet in the symphony. So I have that sound in my head. And I notice when you have to play a salsa solo, the volume is a little bit too loud for me. And then the range is always in the high range. You never hear them playing low notes like you hear Clifford Brown or Freddie Hubbard starting a solo.
Yeah.
So you nail it. So like another thing that makes me, I think, a lot different from a typical Latino trumpet player, right? Because I feel like we're put in a box. And this is my opinion. Once again, I'm probably gonna offend Latino trumpet players. Um, and if I do, they can reach out to me and I'll talk to them, but I feel like we're put in a box and and the reason why I'm saying that because I've been put in a box.
Mm-hmm.
They see the name, my real name is Pedro Emilio Rodriguez, but I go
Oh,
by Pete Rodriguez, right?
yeah.
When they see that, they assume I'm a screaming lead trumpet player. And I'm like, whoa, 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 that's not me.
Yeah.
I respect what all these cats are doing, you know?
Yeah.
And I shared the stage with the best people in the business, but I just never heard the trumpet that way. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was never really successful in that career
Mm.
in New York City. Like
Yeah.
I was considered, it's funny. And I say this now and it used to bother me. It hurt me
Yeah.
emotionally. And I found out through a dear friend of mine, the singer La India? You ever heard of her?
No, no, I don't.
Well, you probably do. You remember, you know who Mark Anthony is, right?
Yeah.
So Mark Anthony did a hit song with La India called Vivir lo Nuestro.
Okay.
Huge hit in the
Yeah.
90s, right? You probably heard it. Kind of classic. So I was playing in her band for maybe 2, 3 years. And several people went up to a friend of mine that they didn't know he was my friend. And they said, how did Pete get that gig? He's he's such a mediocre trumpet player. And the funny thing is, these are people that I would see like in the clubs at the Copacabana, Broadway 96, Le Poulet, where all these clubs in New York City and festivals. And they'll be like, oh man, you sound great. And I'm like, really? So it did hurt. They really didn't know how I played. And my buddy used to be like, well, man, he doesn't play like you, but he could play the trumpet. No, he can't, and it's funny now that I have, because when that happened, records out yet. So they didn't know how I composed and how I heard
Yeah.
heard the music. But the main thing is my favorite instrument is not even the trumpet. It's actually
Really?
the tenor saxophone.
Oh.
So when I'm improvising, I'm visualizing myself playing the tenor. I think that's one of the reasons why I play different.
Huh.
I-
Interesting.
yeah, right. It's different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny because on one of those videos that I heard, this is another thing I noticed, which I think normally you don't hear from a leader, but you stepped aside for the first solo and had the sax player play. I think it was a song for my father on
Oh
your
yeah.
site. You were at a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
concert.
Yeah, that was in Puerto Rico. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was something I noticed. I don't know how many people notice that kind of thing, but I did notice it. It was like, and to me, that's like also it's it's putting your ego behind. It's like I don't have to be the star first solo. No, what serves the music? And yeah, I think I'd like to hear the tenor. you know,
Well,
it's beautiful.
This is amazing that I'm loving this interview so much because I wasn't sure what to expect of you because when we met, you're like, man, we're just gonna wing it. Not wing
Yeah,
it, but we're gonna play by ear and
yeah.
see where the universe takes us. So that's another thing that I learned from I was singing with Eddie Palmieri, the North Sea Jazz Festival, and I look back and I see this brother in the back, and I'm like, man, that guy looks like Freddie Hubbard, right? I'm
Yeah,
like, no, that can't be Freddie Hubbard hanging out backstage while we're playing. So at the time, the trumpet section in Eddie Palmieri's band was ridiculous. There's a trombone player named Conrad Herwig, Jimmy Bosch, Brian Lynch, which is like my teacher and my big brother, Charlie Sepulveda, and David Sanchez. So after, when we're done, I'm like, Brian, is that Freddie? He's like, yeah, you idiot. That's Freddie. We laughed. And it's like, what? So everybody's saying hi to Freddie, and I'm letting them because Brian knew him and Conrad.
yeah.
So I let them say hi and they introduced me to him. And after everybody left, I hung out with Freddie for about an hour. I was like, I need to seize this moment and pick this person's brain. It's Freddie Hubbard.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the things I learned from him that I think of all the time, and I try to tell young players, he says, because I told him, Freddie, I'm new at this. I'm trying to figure this out. I know it's a huge question. What advice can you give me? One of the things he said, you got to learn how to be a great band leader. Don't be, what's the word? Don't
A
be greedy.
schmuck.
Don't be a schmuck.
Sorry.
Don't be a schmuck. Yeah, no, no, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't heard that word in forever, right? Don't be a schmuck. Don't be a hog.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
said, learn from Miles Davis. He knew how to pick trios. He's the king of that. And
yeah,
one thing is, you know, try to picture, like Miles, he could play one note that'll fit through like 5, 6 measures of different chords,
yeah,
right? And then I learned this a lot from one of my favorite jazz trumpet player. It's Terrence Blanchard.
yeah.
And I actually saw him the night that I met you,
Oh,
right? Uh,
yeah,
and I had met him before because we had studied with the same trumpet teacher at Rutgers University.
yeah.
Um, and Adonis Rose, this badass drummer, was there, and they were talking. He let me speak to him. He said, "Hey, I'll introduce you to him." And I remember going up to Terrence. I was like, "Hey, man, besides the Freddies and the Clifford Browns and the Miles Davis, you're my favorite living jazz trumpet player." And I said, "I'm going to tell you why. Because if you listen to Terrence records, most of the time he never takes the first solo. A lot of times you even take the third solo. And then everyone is featured.
Yeah,
Like you can't tell it's a trumpet player's record."
yeah,
I also learned that from Miles Davis. Sometimes you can't even tell if it's his record,
yeah,
and I almost feel like that's what the audience wants to see. And I just did a gig in New Jersey about a month ago, and my saxophone player, which he's great, very underrated, his name is Jonathan Bichet. And he's came up to me after the gig. He's like, Pete, you know what? I've been wanting to tell you this. I really appreciate, and you're the only person that I've seen that allows every single musician to shine in the band. I feel like when I'm taking my solo, it's the John Bichet Quartet.
mm.
And I said, well, you know what? That's my goal. It's like, yeah, it's
Yeah,
you. It's
yeah,
your show. Because everybody's a band leader in my band.
yeah,
It's like it's your time to shine. And but I'm also feeding off what he's saying to see if I can use anything from his solo for me to start my conversation.
yeah.
And then one thing I learned from a good friend of mine, Bradford Marsalis, he was telling me one day when Joey's taking a killing solo on piano and he just takes it to Mach 10, Bradford told me, you know what? I don't need to bring it down and take it back to Mach 10. I can just play more melodic and keep it less. I don't know if he said, I don't remember if he said it, but he said keep it at level 4.
Yeah,
and just play the music.
Yeah.
Don't play the horn, but play the music. And you have to be, I almost feel like you have to be very mature because your brain could play tricks on you. Your brain could be like, oh man, people in the audience are going to think my piano player is better than me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And the thing is, there's people that think that way, but they're not in touch
Yeah.
with the music. They're not
Yeah.
in touch with the spirit. And then also one thing that I do that Kenny Barron taught me, and the only reason why I'm throwing these names out, I always want to let people know that I ask questions and I've had the best people in the business guide me
Yeah.
to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
So Kenny, when I got out the army, Kenny Barron was one of the teachers at Rutgers University. I mean, I didn't know anything. I was starting from scratch.
Yeah.
22-year-old, I couldn't improvise. It was pretty sad. And he was very patient. And he one of the things he told us was like, if you want to be good at composing, you need to spend at least 5-10 minutes a day. It could be a melody. Just concentrate on that. Think about what you were thinking when you just sang that.
Yeah.
Were you stressed? Were you full of love? Were you thinking about going to have lunch, dinner, whatever? Because then that could be possibly the title if it turns into a tune, right? So he says, concentrate on those notes, whatever, 5 notes, 6 notes, and then maybe figure out one chord over all those notes, maybe 3 chords over all those notes, or maybe 6 chords. Each note gets a chord. But you're working on building your ears and you're composing, right? So every tune I compose, there's always a story behind it, right? So on my last record, I have a tune that was composed for this lady that I met. This is an amazing story. Am I talking too much?
No, you're not. But
Sure.
before you say that, I just want to, and hold that thought. I just want to kind of slip this in. One thing that I
You like my
usually,
cup? I was like, you like my cup?
yes, I do. One thing that I always give my workshop students, my singers, because I want them to understand basically what you're talking about, is a Schofield record, a tune that Charlie Hayden, well, Schofield takes a solo, kind of a John Schofield solo, great guitar. I mean, he's one of my favorites.
I
And
love John.
then,
Love John.
yeah, and so it's kind of smoking. And then Charlie Hayden takes a solo and he plays whole notes. And it's perfect. It's just what you're saying. It's like, okay, that inspired me in what way? And this is me. This is how it inspired me. So I love that.
But my
So anyway,
question is,
yeah,
I would have loved to ask Charlie, what was he thinking about that he did that? You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah.
I've never heard a bass player take solos as a whole note, and I've seen the best in the business. John Petrucci, nope. Christian McBride, nope.
Yeah,
Yeah, nope. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
not.
I know. I know. It's not you. You didn't expect it at all. And I
So
can't
wait,
remember the
so this is
cut.
this
I'll
is
have
on
to
a record.
find the cut.
Okay, please do, and please send it to me.
Yeah, I'm gonna
I'm
write
now,
myself a note.
and I've never seen John Scofield live. And
Really?
no,
Oh my
I've
God.
seen him in New York.
He's one of my favorite. I love guitar. I'm a guitar
Yeah.
girl for a long time. I think he's one of the best guitar players.
I love
He's
his
just,
tone. It's totally different from everyone else.
yeah,
That,
yeah,
and that, the whole thing with guitar, which I know nothing of, like, that has to do with your amps and preamps and whatever you're using, your strings,
yeah, yeah,
type of guitar that you have, if it's hollow or whatever, it's so personal, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
beautiful thing. But going to how I compose,
yeah,
and I actually ran into Candy the second day that we met.
yeah.
We came in the elevator together.
Oh,
And it was funny. He's like, "Oh, Pete, how you doing?" And so I composed a tune on my record that says, "Don't help me, help the bear." And this is a funny story. Not a funny, it's actually a sad story. So one day I'm at this park near the house and the she's playing at a park and there's a father, and I'm with my daughter and my wife. Um, I go up to the dad. I was like, "Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?" He's a brother, which
Uh-huh.
where I live is predominantly white. You see people from Pakistan and China, but you normally don't see people of color, black folks. So I was like, "Oh, there's a brother here." So I went up to him, I'm an extrovert. "Hey, what's up, man?" And he's from Queens, I'm from the Bronx, so we connected. Our kids connected. Within 20 minutes, since I'm an extrovert, I'm down the street in his house. My daughter's having Domino's pizzas with the kids, and now my daughter is best friends with his daughter. At the time, his wife was cancer free, very young, maybe 40. Um, and then the cancer came back, and she passed away. Uh, so Janice, which is her name, she is maybe 4'11", Jamaican, tough girl. And at the funeral, when I played my trumpet, I think her sister said, Janice was so tough that if she ran into a bear, the bear needs to be scared because she's gonna take him out. So that's what I said. Don't help me help the bear.
Wow.
But it gets even deeper. So when I was at Rutgers University, Janice was at Rutgers.
Oh,
She was on Douglas campus, which is a ladies campus, right? And I was in the music department called Mason Gross, which was really close. We used to eat at the same dining hall, but we never met. But yet we meet in Round Rock, Texas, which is crazy how the universe connects
yeah,
people.
yeah.
This summer we went to Japan and we took her daughter, my daughter's best friend.
Oh,
Um, and it's the first tune that I composed with flute. It's almost like I don't want to offend anybody, but to me, the flute, um, to me, I think of a woman. And like I said, I don't want to offend anyone, but as I was growing up, it was very few men playing flute, and it's just the way it sounds when you hear it in cartoons, you think of birds. It's like, and it's just pure beauty. You know. Um, so what I do whenever I'm playing the tune or recording, I try to transport myself to how I was feeling at the time of composing this. So this tune brings a lot of sadness. So it's very painful when I play it. I don't know of any other musician that does this, but I feel like if I could take myself to that moment of how I was feeling,
yeah,
how a young, strong woman died of cancer under 45, leaving two children. It's just, and I told the band the story so they can all be in the
yeah,
moment,
yeah, yeah,
because I think that's very important for the band to give me what I want in the studio because recording a record it can be very stressful.
yeah.
No
Very.
audience.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you guys ready? Okay, take one.
yeah,
All right, okay. You hear me? Wait, no, I don't hear you, Pete. Wait, what happened to what
yeah.
happened to the headphones? You're trying to be creative and oh, stop. Oh, wait, what's that sound in the drums?
Or a
Okay,
click track. Yeah,
we never do click track, but
yeah. It's drag.
like when I did the last record, right when we were gonna start, there was a weird sound in the drums. It took 45 minutes to figure out. So you gotta just get out of
Yeah,
the zone because you can't stay in the zone for 45 minutes if nothing happening because it's going to drain you. Well, it's going to drain me. And then like, okay, we're ready. And then you got to get back in the zone.
yeah.
And I remember talking to Roy Hargrove about this. He recording a record is 10 times harder than playing a live gig.
Thank you for saying that. I feel the same way, especially it's just a weird thing for singing. It's very disconnected, you're in a different room. I've tried to be in the same room, but then if you make a mistake, you can't fix it. And yeah, I remember Sheila Jordan saying she hated recording. It's like, yeah, it's an interesting, it's really it's a thing. It's not live performance. It's a recording is a thing all in itself. Yeah, but I know what you mean too about that space because I compose too, and sometimes like I will compose something that's extremely connected to you know to the flow and to my emotions and I know it's good because I get it. I get all that. And then when I perform it again, no matter where, I can actually tap into that again. And yeah, it's great when when you compose something that has those qualities. It's really
Uh,
good.
And you can probably give me some advice for singing. Because did you get to hear anything that I sang?
No, I looked for the mambo, but I didn't hear the
No,
cut
that
that I
there's some
played.
on my new record. There's a song that I actually wrote the lyrics. It's called "Mi Corazón."
Uh-huh.
You should. I think you'll like it.
Well,
I
let's
never.
hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's called "Mi Corazón." The vocal. I
Yeah.
think it's maybe number 3 or 4. But I never record in the studio. What everything is done in the studio, and then the engineer lives in Texas. Then I just go to his house and do it in the house. Because then I can have time practicing with the record.
Yeah.
Because I had never performed it live. Like
Yeah.
right now, I have 2 more tracks that I have to do because I did 2 records in 2 days. I did 19 tunes in 2 days, and I have to do 2 more vocals, hopefully next week for the next record.
Yeah.
So I've been preparing for that. And I feel like I take voice lessons once a week, and that's helped a lot
Oh yeah.
because I was more of a natural singer, and I was singing salsa music, which I want to say it's more in your face, you know. But then I feel like singing jazz, you have to have a lot of vocal control,
Yeah.
and my stuff is, when I'm singing salsa tunes, but with in a jazz setting. So it's different, I think my next challenge is to start working on singing jazz standards.
Uh-huh.
You know, I've heard the one of the best in the world, and you're probably gonna not believe me. I actually saw Ella,
Yeah.
and she was amazing. I didn't know anything about jazz at the time, but I just remember hearing her having so much fun. Uh, um, so I don't know. What advice you give me if I wanted to start singing standards? Now we're
Well,
switching the interview. Now I'm interviewing you.
I know. I'm thinking of a general piece of advice. I would hear somebody sing and then I would give advice, depending on what I heard. But standards, well, first of all, I guess I would say there is a swing in everything. If regardless if you're doing ballads or not. I remember Ruth Price, who's a owns the Jazz Bakery here for years and years and years. She was a singer and a dancer in the early days, and she once said to me, "You can always tell if a singer swings by her ballads or by their ballads." And I was, God, I loved that. It's like, yeah, because when you're a singer, you know, you're an instrumentalist, but your axe is the voice. You're a singer. And so, all instrumentalists, I say this to my students too, everybody in the band has an elastic band. One end of everybody's elastic band is tied to the time and the song going by. Up the other end is personal. We can do whatever we want, but this other end is all tied in together. So we're all connected. So the singer is like that too. And the audience or the musicians or whatever are listening to how the singer relates to that time, just as we're listening to instrumentalists do the same thing. So I think that's a big thing in standards. You know, when they wrote down standards on paper, in those days, they were just trying to get the basic song on the page. They didn't expect you were going to sing, Da 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 da. They didn't expect that, right? But so that's you probably know that because of your experience. But the phrasing is personal, and it's this end of the elastic band. So it can be it can be personal, but it's always tied in to everybody else. I mean, I can say a lot more, but standards. I, I was in a musical family. My father played sax. My mother was a singer. I had two older sisters who sang and played piano, and so and Ella was like my big listening to, as I was
Really?
growing up. Yeah. And so I've been listening to standards forever, and um yeah, so I mean, when you think of standards, first of all, a lot of the standards were written by these Jews who were born in Russia in the 1890s. They came to America, and the 20s were filled with theater, right? And so they were writing for theater, and then the jazz people got a hold of those songs because they were so good. They were kind of based a little bit in classical, right? And pop in the days of pop. And for theater, there was some kind of expression that was necessary to have a song that was popular, you know? So, yeah, so that's just a real general comment.
But
But I want to hear your singing. Can we
yeah,
hear
yeah,
something?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
While you look for that, I want to agree with the lady from the Jazz Bakery, right?
Yes.
But I'm going to disagree.
Okay.
Because Kenny Barron said one of the hardest things to play
Yeah.
it's not fast. It's a ballad.
Right.
So I'm not sure if you could tell if somebody can't swing if they can't sing a ballad because it's just so difficult because you're exposed. Like if you're gonna sing What's New, I don't know the words to What's New,
Yeah.
but it's like da da da. You're exposed. Wa, da, 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 da. Exposed again. Da, 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 da,
See,
we
but
are.
I can hear your connection.
Yeah.
I can hear your connection to the
Okay.
time. I mean, it's we're not talking about the tone, we're not talking about the expression of the lyrics, or because there's a lot. I mean, Carmen McRae to me is one of the best phrasers ever. She
Okay.
could interrupt any sentence anywhere, and you'd still be like hanging on because her focus was so absolute in the song. She could say, "What's new," and you'd still be right there because that was one of her gifts, right?
But you saw what you just did?
Yeah,
That pause?
yeah.
I'm like, where you going with that, Kathy? Where you going? Give me. I love it. It's like,
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And of course, there's Shirley Horn to listen to. One time, people have heard me say this on here, but I was in my I was in my music room all alone. I was listening to Shirley Horn sing In the Dark. So here's the time. So she says, "In the dark, in the dark." That's how long she waited. And I started blushing just all alone. Because why? Because I was thinking about what was happening in the dark. Because that pause, that space is valuable. It lets the listener respond, and respond, right? So space is a really crucial part, I think, of singing the standards. A
not
lot of
only
times I'll hear somebody sing a song and I'll just think, oh, I would have paused there, or, because I like pausing after words because, well, also another thing is when I sing, especially standards, I am singing to myself. So I'm talking to myself. I mean, I'm sharing, but I'm saying what's new. It's my experience. How's the world been treating you? It's my experience. I may be talking to somebody, but it's my experience that I'm experiencing. And that's what I think makes a great singer, that I can tap into your experience, I can see your vision.
So, hey, I want to tell the story behind this tune before you put it for the
Okay.
listener and for
Which
you.
song is it, by the way?
Mi corazón.
Okay, I'm looking on Spotify. Oh yeah, I got it. Okay.
Okay, so this is a tune that I composed. I was talking to several people that I don't want to mention their names. Um, and they're saying, man, Pete, your music's too complicated. You need to simplify, or you make up this word, dumbify your music for the
Yeah.
audience, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's not how I think. I'm composing what the universe, what God gives me, what my ancestors give me, what my mother, I don't have living parents anymore. My mom passed away a year and a half ago. I'm listening to mommy, I'm listening to papi, my grandfather, everybody, and I'm asking them for advice. When you tell me you have to write, they say in Spanish, para el pueblo, to the people. I'm like, what people? Because let's be clear. White people from Manhattan, white people from Texas, black people from Harlem, black people from Houston, Puerto Ricans from the Bronx, Puerto Rican from New York, Puerto Ricans from Miami or Cuba. How do I please all these people? I can't.
Yeah.
You gotta think melody's real simple. So I walk my dogs. As I'm walking the dogs, this melody comes out of nowhere. And it's like "Dee-da-da-wah, ooh-doo-wee-ah, dee-da-doo-da, da-wee-ah, doo-wee-ah, wee-ah, wee-ah." And I was like, wow, I really like that. So I sang it into my phone. I don't have perfect pitch. And I didn't want to forget it because I was like 15 minutes in the walk. And normally what happens with me, within 15, 20 minutes, I hit a certain part where I live was beautiful. Everywhere is beautiful, but it's a lot of trees and I get to run into blue jays, hawks, cardinals, every once in a while, rattlesnake. That scares me. I sang it into the phone to remember it. And then I went to the house to put, my harmony.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking what my friends are saying, simplify it. One or two chords. I'm like, oh, boring. So I keep on adding more chords, add more chords. After the melody, let me add a little interlude to introduce the first soloist. And then after the first and second soloist, let me add a different interlude that has nothing to do with the melody. And then I'll introduce myself. And then at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do me.
Yeah.
And I didn't listen to anything that anyone told me. And this was the first time I added lyrics, and that happened at the same place, walking the dogs. I was always kind of afraid writing lyrics because I didn't know how to do it. And it just came. My ancestors in the universe just gave me the lyrics, and Mi Corazón, if you want to play it so we can hear it. And then I want you to give me some advice for singing.
Okay. So here we go. We're going to do the Spotify thing.
Entre tú y yo no hay nada más que amor. Con tu pasión se llena mi corazón, mi corazón, mi corazón, mi corazón, mi corazón. Entre tú y yo no hay nada más que amor. Con tu pasión se llena mi corazón, corazón, mi corazón, mi corazón, mi corazón. se llena mi corazón, mi corazón, mi corazón, mi corazón, mi corazón.
Beautiful. Wow, what a pretty song.
Well, thank you.
Great playing on it. Okay, great singing. Now, so one thing I noticed was the first chorus and the second chorus sounded a little different.
Yeah.
And the first time I felt like your sound wasn't in resonating enough.
Hmm.
And then the second time it was resonating more. So I don't know
Okay.
what the difference was in time or whatever. So the thing about the instrument is that it's a wind instrument. So I'm assuming trumpet has the same kind of feeling, like you're looking for tone, beautiful tone. It's and where is the tone in a trumpet? It's in the instrument, right? Somewhere in the instrument, it's your what's the word? It's the tactile feeling, your embouchure, and then there's the air going through the instrument. There's a balance, right? There's some kind of a resistance, but not resisting this kind, but it's just a natural resistance of everything that creates a resonance, right? And it's the same thing for the body, which is very trippy. I think the voice is one of the hardest instruments ever because you have to find all of those things, and it messes you up. Your head is like, you've been thinking a certain way all your life, and you don't even know. It's like you have to dig it out. So one thing that you could work on is getting these. I remember when Benny Maupin told me the best way to practice flute, because I play flute too, is long notes. Start off with long notes every day, and that's kind of the idea. Like when I practice, I like angular songs, singing angular songs. That's what I like. I like large intervals and that kind of stuff. I have slowed down my tempos over the years, but which may be even harder. But to get good tone, I have to use things like ahs and v's. I have to get that, use consonants like v's and z, those kind of consonants, which allow the whole balance of the instrument in a much easier way. And then I have to take all of that feeling and perspective and use it on vowels and see how I can bring it over. So I can easily fill the instrument with resonance. That's a very short suggestion.
Great, though. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I think the comparison of wind instruments is crucial to singing,
Yeah, yeah.
So when you're player, also guitar players, because the string is the vocal cords. So, and there's a lot of reality with guitar players. I've taught guitar players too, and they can get it, because there's some kind of tactile feeling of playing a stringed instrument and comparing that to the voice as well.
Yeah. But that's great advice. So I'm going to take that into account.
Yeah. By the way, Neil Van Eerd said hello. I don't know if you know Neil,
Yeah.
but yeah, he says hi. He's here.
Where does he live?
Neil, where do you live? Tell me if you're still actually listening, which I think he is, but anyway, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might live here. I don't know, because of who he's friends with here. Um,
Does the Jazz
yeah,
Bakery still exist?
yes, but not in one location. What she's done over the last number of years is has been moving around the city. So, like she many times she'll work at the Henry Mancini performance space, which is attached to an arts high school on the west side of town. It's really nice. Last person I saw was the bass player, singer, bass player, older guy from 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 Cancun? No, from Africa.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name now. Yeah, he's great.
Ugh, that was
Uh,
so good.
he's
And the
really
the theater is a half round. And it's an intimate theater, which was perfect for him. Who? Let's see. Wait a minute. I just saw him a little while ago, so I'll
I
go
know who
look.
you're talking about too. I have a friend that has played with him a lot.
Oh,
I can't think of his name.
Cuban pianist or drummer or
He's a Venezuelan percussionist named Robert Quintero. He's played with him a lot.
oh,
If
yeah.
if we're speaking about the same bass player that sings,
It was one of the best.
I
Richard
can't,
Bona. Richard
Richard
Bona.
Bona, yeah,
Yeah,
great.
it was one of the best
I've
concerts
never
I've
seen him live.
seen. The
And he's
last
pretty
time I
serious
saw
though.
him live before that was in New York many years ago. He was playing with Mike Manieri and um, Michael Brecker, and and he was amazing. And I absolutely fell in love with his energy and his playing. And then then this was the next time I saw him, which was many years later. But oh, talk about a personal artist. He was playing with a Cuban, kind of younger pianist and drummer, and the dynamics were incredible. He sings like an angel, and he just talks to the audience like you're in his living room. I mean, it was an amazing concert.
Artists do that. I saw James Taylor in Jersey, Madison Square Garden, and that's
It's
how
great.
James was.
I
I mean, it was
know.
like Madison Square Garden, the small theater, but I feel like I was in the living room, and I feel like when you can see that they're beautiful human beings, you connect with their music even more, you know?
Absolutely. And James Taylor has always been like that. I mean, when I was in college, James, the Woodstock was a little earlier than when I was in college, and James was really present at that time, and he had gone through a lot of emotional kind of stuff in those years, and I had come out of an emotional period during high school, and so I really connected with James, but I think a lot of people did. And then to top it off, he's just so real. He talks, he's a beautiful guy. Amazing.
Yeah, I had an ex-girlfriend that she had, I think, a cousin that car broke down somewhere and she was trying to get a ride. And James Taylor picked her up and took her to where she had to go. She's like, wait, aren't you James Taylor? You know, it's like, yep, that's me. And that made me love him more, you know? You know who I saw you know who I saw recently in Austin that was pretty magical? And like I feel like you have great musicians, but then you also have these musicians that are put on this earth to do what they do
Yeah.
because God wants them to do it. And I truly believe that Carlos Santana is one of them. I saw Carlos because one of my good friends from Puerto Rico plays with him, Pauli Mejias. Um, I have seen him twice already. I saw him in Dallas and then I saw him in Austin. And it was just the energy that I saw with Carlitos was that was the same energy that I remember seeing with my father with the Fania All Stars, the same energy that I saw with playing with Cachao, the same
Yeah.
energy with Bebo, the same
Uh-huh.
energy I saw with seeing Pharoah Sanders Freddie Hubbard, and Joe Henderson. It's the same energy, just different styles of music.
Yeah, yeah.
And the one thing that blew me away about Carlos, when he played in Dallas, I went to the hotel to go visit Paoli. And I'm in Paoli's room and I see like, I don't know, 24 white roses. Beautiful. Carlos had sent every band member roses and a card that he wrote, not the assistant, and he signed, saying, thank you for sharing your talent. I am so blessed to have you in my band.
Hmm.
What band member does that? What band leader does that?
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
I play with some serious band leaders. They ain't doing that.
Yeah.
I was like, here's Carlos. Like he spent probably like, I don't know, if to all those band members, those roses, probably each one like $300 or more.
Yeah,
And then they can't even take it home because they were going to another city.
yeah,
Right. So Paoli gave them to me and I brought them home to my wife because they were gonna end up throwing them in the trash anyway.
yeah.
You know, it's like that's when I was like, wow, Carlos is the man.
Yeah. That makes a huge difference. I mean, like you, growing up with a musician and going on, to gigs and rehearsals and seeing how everybody talks to each other, you, I don't know how you can't be attracted to that. You know, it's about the music, it's about camaraderie. How can you not be attracted to that? It's just it's so important and great. So, and I remember the first jazz people that I chose to go to see myself without my dad. My sister took me. It was the Modern Jazz Quartet in Boston in a small place called the Jazz Workshop, which was part of Paul's Mall, and we were sitting in the front row, and it's very small. I mean, as wide as the room was, that was how wide the stage was, and it was right in front. So I just was so struck, not only by the quality of the music, but I was struck by these men, these gentlemen who were dressed well and respected each other and was giving to the audience. That whole persona really attracted me. It was great. And the music, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. It's such a great gift that we get to do it, and also it's a great gift for the audience. Even if they're not clearly thinking about those things, they're getting it. They're getting the message. you know.
No, you're absolutely right. When I lived in New York, I mean, I invested a lot of money in my career,
Yeah.
going to the Vanguard, Blue Note, you name it, all these clubs,
Yeah.
and it was just good to be able to see how, some musicians are introverts. They're not good
Yeah.
to speak to the audience. It's not like they're douchebags. They're just introverts. And I learned that. Oh, okay, this person. It almost seems like he'd rather be home watching Netflix, but
Yeah.
it's just, they don't know how to interact. So I got to see. I think the main thing about going to see all these artists, besides hearing their music, you get to see how they put a set list together, how they introduce the band. I mean, I've seen an artist start with a ballad. I remember seeing, I think, Bradford Marsalis at the Vanguard. Jeff Chang Watts started with like a 5-minute solo. I'd never seen anybody do that.
Yeah.
You know, you start with a fast tune or you finish off with a ballad. You leave everybody like speechless and quiet. There's so many ways, and there's no one formula. I putting a set list together. Like I'm gonna be in New York in a couple of weeks. It's like I don't do it right. I'm already thinking about it, but like, okay, I got 2 sets. How do I want to start it? Lately, past couple of months, I've been starting with a ballad, but it's kind of like rubato. Hold on a second. I'm gonna tell my wife to bring me my charger. Hey, babe, my computer's about to die. Can you bring me my charger? Thank you, baby. Um, so I was starting with the ballad, and but it was rubato. So it's like I'm playing the melody, but the piano player is blowing and the saxophone player is blowing and the drummer is blowing. So it's a ballad, but it's kind of like dramatic. It's like, oh, let me start with that to see how that feels. And it's funny, like a lot of people came up to me, it's like, wow, it's almost like, we're all talking and having a conversation before you get on stage. And then you like it's almost like some type of prayer or meditation. And it's like you were pulling us into you. And it's like that's what the goal was,
That's cool.
you know? And
Really cool.
and the tune is called thank you. And the tune is called Never Too Late.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, my wife hates it when I explain it. It's like, well, it's never too late to tell somebody that you love them.
Yeah.
It's never too late to say you're sorry.
Yeah.
And it's never too late to tell somebody, I don't like you. I hate you. My wife's like, yo, babe, you're coming out in the video. You came out in the video. My wife is always like, you don't have to. She hates that explanation. But it's the truth, It's like, I don't like you, man.
Which I'm getting better
I gotta
at
keep
the older I get.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? I don't
I
care
try
if
to
you think I hate you. But I don't hate too many people. But there are people who are annoying, and I know I shouldn't, I know I should give them love, but sometimes it's
well,
just darn hard.
my motto now for the past couple of weeks is like, I don't hate anyone. I forgive them, but I just try to stay away from them if they're toxic because I know it's not healthy for me.
Yeah,
Whatever they're dealing with in their life, I try to pray for them. Just like keep away, but which like where I live, I'm pretty much with my wife and my daughter, and my father-in-law lives with us, and it's just us. And I'll say hi to friends in the neighborhood, but it's pretty much just us. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
When I go to New York, I play with the band, and we're not really a family, but when we're together, it's like okay, we're a family for the night. We make great music, and then we'll see you in the next
yeah,
show, and
yeah.
so.
Talking about beginning sets, there was a point, like when I used to, this was a long time ago, I used to start my sets with like maybe a slow bossa or something, something on the slower side to get into the feeling. And then I got swayed by somebody who said, you can't start with a song like that. It doesn't grab the audience. And so probably from then on, I started thinking, the first song has to be, up and, but I really like what you said. I think I might even try and start like that because it draws the audience in. It's, it's, uh, um, it's personal, it's like, and the idea of, actually last night I saw a really, I mean, we have an embarrassment of riches here in LA. It's not like New York exactly, It's not like on every corner or you're going to hear all these burning, burning, burning things. But there's so many top-notch players here making great music. So last night, this I, I I don't know. You probably wouldn't know these people because they're LA people, but it was Vardan of Sepian on piano, Navad. I don't know his last name. He's Israeli on guitar. Jake Lecky on bass. It was his band, and Steve Haas on drums, and the music was Jake's music, and it was really um, attractive songs, but as he said, because of the band, the songs were perfect vehicles for the band to take and make their own and use who they are musically. They're all incredible musicians with strong voices of their own, and harmonically interesting and technically good, but musical. They're not just blowing, 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 and rhythmically, and it was amazing. And the first song really struck me. It wasn't slow coming in, but it was harmonically, it was kind of dark harmonically. It had a kind of a certain groove it's set up, and it was dark, and it struck me. It was really interesting for a first song, and yeah, it was. And creating the sets, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit because it's really it's not just like a throwaway thing creating sets. You're creating what where kind of the flow of what the expression will be for the evening, and it's interesting. I mean, especially being a singer, because I get these various gigs where I have to entertain the crowd, or I'm singing. It's certain spots where you're doing it. It's not always like you're the artist doing it. So, but when you are the artist, it's like, okay, so how am I going to create this? How am I going to start? And where am I going with this? Who's in the band? By the way, your bands are stellar. Wow, I've been noticing them. Really good. As a matter of fact, the drummer really caught my ear on the song for my father. He
Oh,
was,
that drummer's from Puerto Rico. Yeah, he's
he
great.
was, yeah, I really enjoyed him a lot. But anyway,
I've
so
never
creating
recorded,
sets.
and
Oh, yeah. As a matter of
I
fact,
think the
I
way the
just
people.
wanted to quickly mention that the trumpet player standing next to you, this was my take. When you started your solo, all of a sudden he smiled like I think he was thinking, oh, he's starting soft and, beautiful. I think that's what he was thinking.
Well, yeah, yeah, 'cause I think that guy's he's a screaming lead trumpet player, so
He's great
he
too.
never starts
Yeah.
solos like that. Oh yeah, he's
Yeah.
great, good friend of mine.
Yeah.
But I th I think the whole thing with creating sets is
Yeah.
not spoken about.
Yeah.
The way you learn how to create sets, because you can't. I mean, you learn how to create an album set, right? From listening to records.
Yeah.
Some people are great at that. Some people like they suck at it. You're like, oh my God, this is kind of boring the way they created this set, right?
Yeah.
On the record. But I think the reason why I've become really great at creating sets is because I've seen so much live music, and those are the things that I was paying attention to
Yeah.
in Kenny Barron, Pharoah Sanders, Freddie Hubbard, Joe Henderson, Branford Marsalis, Joshua Redman, uh, Red Rodney, Dizzy Gillespie, Roy Hargrove,
Okay,
Mick
so
Clayton, like
so
all.
when you're when you're creating a set, do you have a one process that you always go through, or is it kind of open?
No, it's like I try to envision myself on stage. And man, like the last time I was in New York, it took me like almost an hour to create my two sets. And
Yeah.
I always do it like the day, I almost do it like the day before
Yeah,
sometimes.
me too.
But I'm thinking about it. I'm already thinking about it. My gig is April 3rd in Jersey and then April 5th in New York. And I'm already, okay, it's my first time playing with a Latin jazz group in New York. Normally it's been the jazz quintet.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking I'll start with my straight ahead stuff, 3 tunes, and then 2 to 3 tunes Latin jazz. So
Yeah.
if if the last tune of the straight ahead tune is a burner, then the Latin jazz tune has to be something medium tempo. or slow. Because you bring people up and you bring them down and then you bring them back up.
Yeah.
You know. So I'm already thinking about what do I want to do. And then since every tune has a story, I think about, okay, what's the story? And I'm always telling the audience why I composed this tune, so then they can think about how I was feeling. And pretty much almost everyone loves that, because most musicians don't talk about why they compose a tune, but I do that on every show. It's like, hey, thank you for coming. I know you could have probably been at home watching Netflix on a Friday night after working all week. You know, you're going to be introduced to my life, and my musicians are going to be able to express my life, through their horns, and I'll be telling you why I compose these tunes. And every time I get off stage, people that have never met me and have never even heard my music. That's the cool thing about playing in the Village in New York at the Zinc Bar. It's right up the street from Blue Note, so it's a really busy street. And you get to see the artist. There's a nice flyer, and a lot of people just walk in. Oh, it's a bar. Oh, there's music. Let me go hear this. And and I always say my dad jokes too. So people like my dad jokes. They're really corny. But sometimes I say, hey, if you can answer this dad joke, I'll give you a free CD. Just to get the crowd involved. So
Yeah.
and I think the best thing is that since I'm an introvert, it's extremely easy for me to talk to anyone.
You're an extrovert, you mean?
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
I love talking to people.
Yeah.
I'm not shy at all.
Yeah.
I also love animals. So like if I see a person walking down the street with an animal, I always want to say hi to the animal. And me being a stay-home dad, I love, I really love children. They're so beautiful. They don't.
There's a lot to talk about. You have to meet my percussionist sometimes. I have a steady gig on Saturday mornings, 9:30 to 1 in Santa Monica, and my percussionist is Joey De Leon, and he's like you.
Yeah.
He's an extrovert. He'll say hi to the person while he's playing. He'll wave at people walking by and jokes and he's a great player. And so it all happens kind of all at the same time. He's a great person to have on the gig. It's fun.
That name sounds familiar, Joey De Leon.
He's been on the road a lot with bigger names, so you may have seen him pass through or.
With who? Do you know?
I think he's from. Is he from the Bronx? I want to say he's from the Bronx. So I don't know. Hey, I'm going to play some music, and I have to actually go to the restroom. But so I'm going to go on your site and play one of your videos with like Stolen Changes. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. That's it.
Okay.
That I basically those are the changes of confirmation.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and actually I'm gonna get this call real quick while you play that. Is that okay?
Totally fine. Just you're going to mute
Okay.
yourself. Don't forget to mute
Yeah, let me
yourself.
do that.
Okay. So here's Stolen
Yeah,
Changes.
I'm glad you told me that.
guess you guys had fun on that.
Yeah, it was great. That's such a hard tune. You know, I I started doing those contrafacts
Yeah.
when I was in college. So Kenny Barron had us do that as an exercise when he taught us arranging, and he said that it's a good way to learn how to compose, so you don't have to worry about the chord changes. You pick a set of chord changes, and then you write a new melody over them, so you're not stressed out. You're not stressed out harmonically. So I started doing that in school, and on every record, I always do a contrafact.
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought about it like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
on my last record, I have a contrafact over Herbie Hancock's One Finger Snap
Uh-huh.
and over Benny Golson's Stablemates.
Interesting. Do you know Bob Shepard, the sax player from here?
I don't know him, but I know who he is.
Yeah. So he used to have a group, with bass and drums, and they were called Lounge Lizards, and and he made this whole record of contrafaxes. And what was cool was he had the names were kind of playoffs of the real song, or the song that he was operating off of. It was great, really cool to hear that. A whole record of that. It was great. By the way, my friend Roland says, my greatest memories from my dad were his oft repeated corny dad jokes. Thanks, Pete, for reminding me of that. You know who has extremely corny dad jokes is Peter Erskine. Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
I got
Sometime
I
if you
got
see him.
yeah, I got one for you.
Okay.
What do you call a lady standing in the middle of a tennis court?
I don't know.
A net.
That's pretty corny. But it's cute.
What do you call a bear with no teeth?
I don't know.
Gummy bear.
Wow, Roland, how are you liking these? You could tell them to your granddaughter when she gets a little
Okay.
older to understand.
Yeah, the classics.
That's funny. So, um, we've talked about a lot of stuff. Speaking of um, his name just went out of my head. Freddie Hubbard. So Freddie lived in the valley, in San Fernando Valley, for a long time. I don't know if he moved around a lot, but I had this jam session. It was the best jam session at the time. It was years ago. Now, of course, there's great jam sessions that surpassed me now. But at the time, it was before Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. So it was kind of the happening jam session in town. I had it for 7 years at this one place called the Sportsman's Lodge, and so many people came through. And part of the attraction was just kind of how I ran it. If you came in with your trumpet and there was a song playing, I'd go up and say hi, and I'd say go on in, to the song, and so it was great. And a lot of people came from all over the world actually to hang. And Freddie used to hang at the bar. He never played, but he always came. He really dug the scene because it was a great scene. We had a lot of people coming through, like sometimes 200 people a night just hanging out. And but yeah, Freddie Hubbard, and Freddie used to play at the old lighthouse, which was on the Hermosa Pier, which was a great room. It was a very small kind of half, you know, circular club with the stage like right there in front of the circle, and the seats went up, and it probably didn't hold more than 100 people. I don't know. It was small, and they had a really great green room and a great bar in the back. It was great, and Freddie used to play there often. It was a really cool scene.
Yeah, one of my
I'd love
favorite.
to own a place like that.
Yeah, well, real estate LA is not cheap, so
Now, one of my students, about 15 years ago, opened a club called the Blue Whale.
heard of
And
them.
yeah, he was Korean, and it was interesting. He came to me and he said, "Well, I'm not really a jazz singer. I've listened to a lot of jazz in Korea, and I was supposed to be an architect, but I really like jazz." And so I said, "Okay, well, what do you want to sing for me?" And he said, "All the things you are." And I was like, "Okay, for a non-singer, that's kind of an interesting song to start with." He sounded great. And then I said, "Do you scat?" And he said, "Well, not really." And I said, "Okay, well, let's hear it." It was great. And so over the years, he was singing, but then he got this idea to open the Blue Whale. And what a great club it was. And
It was, huh? It doesn't exist.
well, he stopped during the pandemic. He was going to Korea a lot, and nobody was, coming into the club. It was high rent. So he stopped. But now, like literally right now, he has a new space that was downtown. This is in Atwater, and it's almost like a sound stage. It's really large. It has a really large space for the jazz, and then a smaller space for world music or classical, and then like a large space for a restaurant. And I have to say, he's kind of a visionary. He's a really interesting guy, nicest guy in the world, and but he just has these ideas that he makes happen. And this project, this the Blue Whale will, it might not be really open for business till the fall, but I mean, he has these ideas for it that are amazing. They're really amazing. And yeah, I think the world of him. I'm very proud of him, but also I just admire him a lot. He's and
Is
it's
there a lot of
always
places
for the good of everybody. Sorry?
are there a lot of places to play jazz in LA? A decent
I
amount?
wouldn't say a lot, no. But there's a number of ones that are a little under the big wire. The Blue Note is coming here this year, which will be good for jazz in general in LA. There's the Blue Whale, which everybody's been waiting for the Blue Whale to come back. And then there's, like last night, I was at my favorite home venue here. It's my friend from years ago. We used to play like club gigs and casuals together. And he bought this house a long time ago in Mount Washington, which is just north of downtown. And over the years, he fixed it up, and he has this room that's dedicated to music. He has a Beckstein grand piano, which he just had restrung, and 60 people audience space, a bar, and it's great. And it's really great. He's really
What's the name
cool.
of it?
It's called the G Spot because
Oh,
his name is Goldman and he's a funny guy. So he decided to call it the G Spot, you know, for funny reasons.
okay. And is it only for like local people?
No,
Okay.
but it's not a club per se. So he does it once a week on Sundays usually now. I mean, he did it more before, but he just, it's his house. And then there's this weird little club that is kind of reminds me of a little New York club. It's called the 1881, and it's in Pasadena, and it's gotten more well known. Jimmy Branley, a great drummer, has Wednesday nights there, and he mixes it up, the bands and stuff. And Friday nights, another great drummer, Joel Taylor. And so those nights in particular are great, but they also have some other nights happening. I'm going to sing there because there's going to be a singer series. So there's clubs like that have come and gone in LA. and um, all over the place. I mean, you'll hear about stuff popping up. There's the Jazz Bakery. She doesn't do too many local people. She does more out of town people.
Yeah,
Um,
I was trying to schedule a tour in California. There's a club called the Black Cat.
where's that?
That's in San Francisco,
Okay.
but it's been the owner's been extremely busy, and we've been chatting for like 3 months. So um, my daughter might do a summer camp. She's an artist. She sings and she's an actor. So she might do something. I think it's UCLA
Uh
this
huh.
summer. So if she
There's
does,
also the baked potato, by the way, which has been around forever.
yeah, I knew that name.
Yeah.
I just got a new booking agent, beautiful young lady. So we're trying to schedule like something in California. So I'm glad you're mentioning these spots. I can let her know.
Yeah. The
Especially if
bakery
I'm
would be awesome.
yeah, especially
And
if my daughter does this summer camp, it's like 2, 3 weeks. My wife and I will be in LA, so it'll be kind of
yeah.
good to schedule something. So
I would go for the bakery or even the baked potato. I would stay away from vibrato because vibrato, it's kind of a well-known room, but the sound in it is weird, especially when you're on stage. You hear people having conversations.
that's how it is in Austin. What's the name of that place?
Vibrato. It's Herb Alpert's place.
Oh wow, that's interesting. Is he? Wait, he's still alive, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's okay for certain things, but I wouldn't, if I were you, I wouldn't do it. And I would do more like the baked potato um, or Catalina's is, like a great place. I love it there. Some people don't love the sound, as artists there, but I think it's great. I like in the audience and I like being on the stage. And it's one of the more prestigious older establishments here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try to see if there's something online that I can reach out. It's probably a
Yeah.
long list of people too.
Yeah. I mean, Catalina's might be a really good place.
And
It's
maybe
it's a little more expensive and a little more prestigious than the baked potato. The baked potato's a little more funky, but it's still famous. So
do you play there?
I actually am working on getting a CD release party there for a few months away. So
Nice.
in all these years, I've never played there. I've only gone there a million billion times. I've sat in there a few times, but
There you
yeah, I just mostly they weren't really doing jazz so much. I mean, like real jazz. They were doing, more rocky stuff and
go. Hmm.
over the years. But then they started kind of opening the doors for other stuff as
Okay.
well. Yeah. So, yeah. Um, so, if you were on a desert island, man, this is one of my standard questions, but I like to hear it. What what albums would you bring?
Oh, never thought of that.
Really?
No. I would just want to be with my family. I wouldn't really care about music as long as I'm with my wife and daughter.
Now that's a first. I've never heard anyone say that, which is really nice.
Yeah, I wouldn't be thinking. The music would be in my head.
Yeah.
Earth, Wind and Fire, James Taylor, Fania All Stars, my dad, Miles Davis, Freddie Hubbard would be in the head. Family first, so like
Yeah.
without that
Was that how your family was growing up?
music. Oh yeah, that's all
I
we heard.
mean, well, were you super family oriented too?
Oh, big time, big
Yeah.
time. Yeah, great.
I
My father was an amazing human being.
yeah. I was oh, thanks Kimberly. She mentioned the mint. It's a little too small, I think, for what he does. Um But yeah, that's
But
one of
tell her
the
thank
oldest
you. Tell her
clubs.
thank you.
Thank you, he says. But I was telling them like early in when you before you came on about Pete Escovedo and how I was in Japan when Herbie Hancock did the first international jazz festival, and John Beasley is a friend of mine. He was like the MD, and so he invited me. So when I went to get the tickets, I saw the Escovedos in the hotel, and Pete was so lovely. Oh man, he's just so generous in spirit, you know. Um, so
From the Bay
yeah,
Area.
say what?
Isn't he from the Bay Area?
I'm not sure.
So
Yeah,
that's Sheila
but
E's dad, right?
in the Bay Area or LA?
That Sheila E's dad, Peter Escovedo?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, they're from the Bay Area because I remember my wife used to see him. My wife's from Berkeley.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So your family was, I mean, it must have been really cool growing up in that musical environment and just feeling very natural about it, right?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's like it's just I'm the son of salsa royalty, right? So it's
Yeah.
like Peter Conde, Johnny Pacheco. So once you put those two together, besides having my real family from my mother, more so from my mother's side, more so from my father. My father's side was very small, but my aunt was Celia Cruz, uncle, Hector Lavoe, Cheo Feliciano, Papo Luca, Larry Harlow, Roberto Roena, all these people, So I got to perform with Celia Cruz. I got to see La Lupe, you know, Hector Lavoe used to throw me up in the air. My mother used to yell at him, "You better not drop him because I'm gonna kick your ass." So it's like growing up with all these, it's like growing up with the equivalent of a Miles Davis and Duke Ellington. And there's so much love and respect those guys had to each other. Then from there, going to Puerto Rico, playing classical music, then joining the army. That was another different world. Being in an infantry unit, jumping out of helicopters. Like I wanted to be Rambo for a second. Then getting out, directing my dad's band, and uh, playing with La India, playing with Israel Cachao, with Patato Valdez. I was in his band, being able to see the Gonzalez brothers, Jerry and Andy Gonzalez, they're both from the Bronx. It's just so much, music on steroids in New York City from all genres,
uh,
like 1 minute you at the Vanguard seeing Pharoah Sanders, and then the next minute you can go see the New York Philharmonic playing Pictures on Exhibition or Mahler 5.
yeah.
Then you can go go see a Broadway show, and then you can have some good Dominican food on 175th Street. You know what I'm saying? At 3 in the morning, which I don't do that stuff anymore. My body can handle that. But New York City is, I mean, like you said earlier, LA has great musicians. I feel like every city has really wonderful musicians, everywhere.
Yeah.
Nashville, Austin. Austin's like, it's a great city. Uh, I don't consider it a jazz town. There's three places to play. Um, but it's more so for me when I think of Austin, it's like a singer-songwriter town of blues.
Yeah.
They really embrace that.
Yeah.
And they really embrace uh standards.
Yeah.
Singer-songwriter, like Fly Me to the Moon, that whole genre. They Austin is really, really embraces that. I love living where I live. Like how we started the conversation. Like
Yeah.
Georgetown is great. I can walk barefoot from my house to my post to the mailbox. That's how clean it is. And everyone says hi. I can walk my dogs and people wave at you like, hey, people that I don't even know. Like, hey,
Yeah.
and I wave back.
Yeah.
It's really chill. The loud noises maybe like wife and I, what's that noise? And it's like the birds yapping in the backyard. You know,
That's great. I remember talking to Wadado Smith, and he actually lived in LA at the time. He lived in LA, but he worked out of town only. He didn't work in LA for various reasons.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
kind of like what I'm doing. It's like,
yeah,
yeah, you know, politics. And I don't like politicking.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's all good.
yeah. These days, I mean, there was a time when we worked a lot, and not so long ago, really, I was doing 4 gigs a month. Now I have a steady gig, but beside the steady gig, I'll do an extra 1 gig, for the month. Uh, but now I have a steady gig. It's great. And
That's
yeah,
good. I wish I had a steady gig with some serious musicians. Because if you look at it, a steady gig, you could say what I used to do when I used to have a steady gig. It's like I'm gonna write one tune per week.
yeah,
That's that is sight readable.
yep,
You can have fun. So you're working on composing.
yep,
Okay, I'm gonna write a blues for 6 weeks and a blues in a different key every week. Think about something simple.
it's really
Uh,
fun, isn't it? Yeah,
yeah, when you do that, I used to have a gig downtown like that many years ago, and I
yeah,
used to run a jam session. I'll say, okay, for 6 weeks, I'm gonna write one new tune, and a lot of the tunes on my records were tunes that I brought to the jam. Obviously, I did a lot of editing, to
yeah,
make them a little bit more
sure,
complicated, but it's a great thing to have. Now I got so used to not playing here. It's fine. I have to practice differently for when I go to New York.
yeah,
Because I'm playing with people that are playing every week, and I'm going there without doing a gig for 4 or 5 weeks. So a lot of it is up here,
yep,
preparing myself mentally, and then I have to do a lot of daily maintenance on the trumpet and make sure everything is really connecting because you go from just playing at home. One thing is to play at home, do your daily maintenance,
yeah,
work on improvisation, play with some records, and then one thing is to have that rhythm section behind you. It
yeah,
feels better. So I've gotten used to that now. It's like before it was like, oh, it's so hard. But now I'm like, okay, I get to come home and reassess everything. It's like, okay, I want to work on this. I want to work on this. Trying to memorize my tunes. It's harder to memorize them because I'm not performing all the time. So now I got 4 weeks before my next gig. So today been a busy day. Maybe I'll be able to practice a little bit because right after this call, I gotta go take my daughter to rehearsal. But one of our cars just died, and
mm,
we had to buy a new car. So we're gonna go pick it up at the Honda dealership. So probably today I might only be able to practice a half an hour, which I'm used to that. But I consider like if I don't have the horn in my face, I'm still practicing. I'm thinking about music. I'm listening to music. I'm
yeah.
also thinking about things I want to work on in my head. So it's just as important, you know.
I can totally dig that. Yeah, I totally understand that. Last night it was funny. The music was it was very intense playing, and the bass player at one point he said, "Yeah, my wife's really surprised because she only hears me playing slow at home."
Ah,
And so and he was really working.
mhm.
So yeah, it's interesting for me. The voice too. I for several years I went through this weakness in my production of my voice that really made me unhappy, and um, I I have a chronic cough, and I think that it affected my singing more than I even considered. And so I've been seeing a teacher for the last, I don't know, half a year or more, 9 months, something like that. And I'm getting my voice back to a good working place. And maybe when I was younger, I sang well, but I don't know if I had as much consciousness in it, you know.
Okay.
Did you want to did you want to pause?
No, 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 no,
Oh,
no. My
okay.
my father-in-law was getting closer to where
Oh,
we're doing it. Let me just tell him on a call. Hold on.
sure.
Victor, I'm on a Zoom, man. Can you talk in the kitchen? I don't know why he's coming close to me.
He
The
loves
house
you.
is big enough. Why not? Kitchen. 'Cause I'm in the second floor, so he's coming
Oh.
closer to the front door. You just stay at the kitchen. Yeah.
Yeah, but so singing at this point is it's a head trip. I got to get in the right head space to actually allow my body to produce well, and just to sing and have a good time, and the thing that for me that I always have to remember and get as soon as I start is the headspace, right? You're in the magic immediately. It shouldn't take a long time to get into the magic. You should just step right in. So yeah, it's
But how do you do that when you how do you do that when you can't? I
when you haven't been
I have
practicing.
my own. Well, I have if I'm not still in the moment because of whatever I
Yeah.
do.
Sorry, what did you say? Because you cut out.
That I have a certain technique that I use to get into the moment when I'm not in the moment and ready. And I was asking you, what do you do if you feel like you're not ready?
Um, there are a few philosophical things that I do. I remember one time I was doing a concert, an outdoor concert, and before the gig started, I was really nervous because I felt kind of out of it. I felt, I wasn't like really solidly in my body. And then I realized, so what? I always operate outside of my body.
Yeah.
What's different about this? I can operate outside of my body right here. And all of a sudden, it was fine, and I was in the space. The other thing for me is really connecting with the musicians, you know, which sometimes singers don't do, um, but I would suspect for anybody that would be something that was good. You have to get here in the moment, right? You have to be in the moment and be okay in the moment, like what's going on around you, and kind of absorb everything and have affinity for where you are. And no matter what it is, I remember hearing this blind piano player play and make the bartender's noise part of the music. Wow, you know. He
That's a good way
wasn't
to.
resisting it. He was engaging it. It was really interesting. I mean, he wasn't answering it, but it was in the space. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, when the bar's really close to the stage and they're making drinks, and if you're playing a tune that there's more space so that you can hear the click, the shaking of something or glass, you can't really get mad at that because the bartenders are doing their job and they're connecting with who they're making the drink, and
Yeah.
like, what do you want? Oh, I want this. I'm not sure what I want. Not something not too strong. I don't let that bother me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but that's smart that they just use what's happening as part of the. I always try to remind people, hey, don't forget to tip the waitresses and the bar staff.
Yeah. How do you get into the space?
Um, a lot of times what I do, I try to transport myself to the energy of other artists, when I've been at a show.
Yeah.
Like the Fania All Stars had an amazing energy, or let's say if I think of Pharoah Sanders' energy when I saw him in New York at the Vanguard, or Roy Hargrove, I meditate, close my eyes, and think about how great I felt,
Oh, interesting.
you know?
Yeah.
And then talk to my ancestors, talk to mommy. It's like, Ma, you know, please to help me express myself the best that I can to be able to touch people's heart with my music. and play the music because sometimes you're like, oh man, I worked on this lick.
Yeah.
I worked on this pentatonic pattern for the last 6 months, and finally, I want to see how I can incorporate it without it sounding like a lick. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I try to stay away from that. It's like, let me just play the music. Oh, do I have to play a high note? No. There's people that do that. Like I'm not gonna mention the trumpet player's name, but there's some people that they have to do that because that's their brand.
Yeah.
And if they don't do it, they don't get applauded. So it's kind of a drag because that person doesn't even need to do that because he's been in the business for so long.
Yeah.
But some people like playing for the audience.
Yeah.
There's a difference, right, between playing for the audience and playing
For the
the
music.
music for the music.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wrote a tune called Caminando con Papi, very spiritual song, and by the time I always take the last solo, and by the time I take my solo, everybody has sounded so great, and my chords are totally different. That most of the time I'm kind of like playing half notes and whole notes and short melodies. And then I just play the melody out. I never really, it's like, because it's just so beautiful that the chords speak for itself, and it's taken me a long time to be able to control my thoughts and be like, man, people, people for trumpet players especially, they think that playing high is the shit.
Yeah.
Playing fast. But most of the people that go see you play, they're not trumpet players. So they don't know how difficult it is to play high. It's like they just want to hear something pretty. Like especially when you're playing really high, your face doesn't look good, right?
Yeah.
It's like, like you know, person that just finished, the person that just finished, I don't know, working at a law firm or a doctor, they must be like, man, is this guy okay? See what's going on? Why does his eyes seem like they're gonna pop out? I'm not sure if I like that. You know what I'm saying? And the only people that want to hear the high notes are the trumpet players in the audience, and most of the time, the musicians don't even come out because they can't even afford the clubs. Some of these clubs are like $50.
That's true.
I remember, may he rest in peace, the late great Brecker, Michael.
Yeah. Yeah.
I went with my wife to go see him. He put out a record, I think it was called Nanette. Man, it was just $100 for the both of us. That was without a drink. He spent like $180. I'm like, okay. I, most, a student can't afford that. So that's why, when you go to a lot of these clubs, you don't see students.
Yeah.
You can't afford it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely a problem. Yeah.
But then again, the rent is so high that they have to
Yeah.
raise
Yeah.
the price.
Catalina's during the pandemic did a GoFundMe because they wanted to keep their workers paid, and they made over $100,000 for the GoFundMe.
Ooh.
So they kept most of their people have been with them for years.
Yeah. And Herb Alpert, isn't he like a millionaire? Because
I'm sure.
I heard he's like, I think the richest, I think might be the richest musician ever. Like jazz. Like that's.
I don't know. By the way, we didn't. We're about to leave, but we didn't talk about Oscar Hernandez being one of your
Who? It cut off. Who?
Oscar Hernandez being one of your
Yeah, great mentor. Friend of the
mentors. Yeah.
family. Played with my dad when he was very young. His family members are really close to my family. They babysat me when my mother was going through cancer. They were helping my mother a lot. The day, when she died, they all came to the hospital. The Hernandez family, they're
Oh,
very special to me. Oscar, taught me how to direct my dad's salsa band. I owe him a lot. A great piano player, great arranger. He has a great salsa band, that won
yeah.
several Grammys. We don't speak too often, but he's in LA. You know,
Yeah, he is. He's
he's a
cool. He's been on here twice actually, and
bad cat.
yeah,
He's a bad
I
cat.
just
I love
yeah,
Oliver.
yeah, he's cool. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for being on. Sorry about the mix-up of time, but it worked out fine. We got to actually hear like almost an hour of your music ahead of you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that the universe put us in that time. And if I do get anything, in a club in LA, I'll let you know so then we can possibly get something to eat and hang out. And if I do go to LA with my daughter for a camp, maybe we can grab something to eat.
Absolutely. I have to find the best eatery, but my brother-in-law knows a lot of good places. My brother-in-law from my first marriage is a drummer named Joey Heredia, and
Mhm.
he eats. He knows where the eateries are.
Beautiful. Okay, well, once again, thanks again for spending time with me. It's been beautiful.
Thank you too, Pete. And just a word to people in LA. I'm going to be at Campus Jacks on Thursday in Irvine, Newport Beach area. It's a early set, 6:30 to 8. Come out, great band, and tribute to Stephanie Haynes. And then Saturday, I have my steady gig in Santa Monica, 9:30 to 1. It's great. It's a great breakfast place. So thank you, Pete.
Thank you, Kathy, and have a
Have a great
wonderful
day.
week.
Thank you. You too.